When it comes to getting players invested in your game, there's generally a sense that you'd want to make them feel empowered and reward them for getting things right. For example, you can absolutely crush the player to dust over and over in the likes of Dark Souls, as long as you make the reward for solving puzzles or defeating bosses feel like a true victory. There are tons of ways that games do this to aid with this immersion. I mean, short load times and minimal punishment for deaths, they keep you invested with that one more go mentality, as does doling out rewards at milestones to make them feel like they're growing. Basically, you're patting the player on the back and saying, "Good job, mate. You're really clever." Well, these games, they offered rewards, but not for being smart, and the only way that they wanted you to use your brain is when you're headbutting something that you otherwise really shouldn't. So with this in mind, let's turn off our brains and reap the benefits. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that rewarded you for being an idiot. Number 10. Dying. Dark Souls 2. So I know I just mentioned Dark Souls in the opening, but there's actually an example where dying is not a punishment at all, but an actual reward. In New Game Plus, in Dark Souls 2, when you reach the Drangleic Castle throne room, you'll find that there are 2 pursuers for you to brawl with. 2 of these beefy boys. Brilliant. Well, since 1 pursuer is usually enough of a decent challenge, 2 can easily be too much to face. So what should you do in this situation? Well, just let one of them stab you. No, seriously, don't even think about it. Just let yourself be impaled, because if you do, assuming you have enough health to survive the hit, one of the pursuers will literally naff off because they think that the battle is done and dusted. Idiot! This leaves you free to face down this mini-boss, rest at the bonfire nearby, and then duking it out with the second pursuer, who is presumably very confused as to where his teammate went, in a one-on-one battle, making it much more manageable. Number 9. Pressing a button labeled "Do Not Push." Luigi's Mansion. A substantial part of the plot of Luigi's Mansion is kickstarted by you doing something that is so dumb that anyone would call it out if it were a horror film. As Luigi, you remove a poster helpfully labeled "Danger," look at a button labeled "Don't Push," and then naturally decide to press it. This frees countless ghosts, not to mention King Boo, who is surprisingly intimidating here for a cartoon ghost, by the way. While it should be totally obvious that pressing this button is a dumb move, it's one that you will be severely punished for not doing, as you literally cannot complete an integral portion of the game unless you suck it up and become that one dumb horror movie protagonist. And thus you dive headfirst into stupidity and into busting a whole lot more ghosts. It's unclear if this decision is supposed to be all Luigi, proving him to be the well-meaning but perhaps not ingenious one of the brothers, or if you instead are piloting him towards a terrible fate that he desperately doesn't want. I'm sorry for the trauma in that case, Luigi. Number 8. Discovering a secret level. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. When you discover the grabby pterodactyl enemies in the Dynamite level, you might consider them an easy enemy. They're not especially fast, and they're not especially unpredictable, so you can dodge them without any real issues. However, your sweet dodging skills are actually to your own detriment here, because if you do get caught by one of these ancient creatures, you don't get mercilessly slaughtered by its sharp beak and wicked claws. No, you get whisked away to a secret level that you'd otherwise never get to see. Unless you know about this sordid little secret or manage to goof or jump, there's no way that you could possibly discover this. After all, every other enemy that you face in this game just kills you like you'd expect, so you have less than 0 reason to expect this to be any different. Oh, but I should say that it's only one of these creatures that will take you to the secret level, so to get it accidentally, you've got to be pretty damn lucky, or a legitimate psychic who has for some reason decided to use their immense powers to cheat at video games. Number 7. Rewarding you for not playing. Far Cry 4. At this point, the early ending for Far Cry 4 is almost iconic, known by hundreds of people who have never even played this game. Basically, the game's big bad, Pagan Min, invites you to a meal at the start of the story, and just before you can grab any of that delicious-looking crab rangoon, he takes your friend to be tortured, but he does ask for you to stay behind and enjoy the food. Now, if you play the game normally, like somebody who doesn't want to enjoy a meal to the ambient sounds of torture, you will of course immediately begin exploring. But if you wait for a hefty 13 to 15 minutes, Min will walk back, thank you for your patience, and then basically become your best bud and kind of weird explosive stepdad. However, when you think about it, it's unclear exactly how anyone managed to discover this without previously knowing it existed. It was either discovered by somebody who was tidying their room or making a coffee with the game on at the beginning of the game, which is still strange, or otherwise by someone so dazzlingly polite that they simply couldn't stand being potentially rude to even a fictional dictator. Either way, they're truly the best of us. Number 6. Killing a dragon with your bare hands. Colossal Cave Cave Adventure. A text adventure crafted way back in 1976, it was a sort of D&D-esque adventure through a cave where the objective was to gather as much treasure as you could and escape without losing all your lives to enemies that were rife within this area. It was also part of paving the way for another trend in text-based adventures, being absolutely snarky. The game is entirely written with an often sarcastic, always entertaining tone, to clue you in that some of the puzzle solutions in this game are going to be more than a little wild. But you might not realize how wild this is going to be until you're tasked with killing a dragon that comes into your path. When you type "kill the dragon," the game will seemingly sarcastically ask if you'd like to kill it with your bare hands. After presumably dying to try and do it any other way, you'll actually stumble upon the right answer being yes. As it turns out, you totally can mangle a giant malevolent lizard with your own mitts, despite the fact that this is probably the last answer that anyone would actually believe. Number 5. Ignoring a dying man. Cave story. When you see Professor Booster after fighting Monster X, you have two choices. Go to his aid like a good hero, or abandon him like maybe less than a good hero. But in order to get the good ending, you legitimately have to just leave him to it. I mean, I'm sure he'll be fine, and you probably just get in the way anyway, so just leave him be. To be fair, that actually works because not helping him means that he does actually manage to get himself to safety against nearly all logic. Hilariously, this gives you a better reward than trying to be nice. Running to Booster's rescue nets you a half-finished jetpack that lets you jump higher and glide your way to areas that you'd otherwise not be able to reach, but leaving him, however, means that he'll give you the fully finished version, which improves your flying capabilities. It also unlocks the secret end level of the game and the proper final boss, meaning that if you want to experience this, you have to let an old man crawl his way to safety without any of your help. Number 4. A low intelligence run. Fallout. When you first play almost any Fallout game, the intelligence skill doesn't actually seem all that vital. When your priorities are shooting guns, punching well, and charming people, it's easy for your smarts to fall by the wayside, and for you to make it, and therefore for you to make it your lowest stat. However, it can become clear to a player almost straight away why this is a dumb idea. Characters with lower intelligence lose the ability to have as effective a conversation as they usually can in the Wastelands, often leading to confusing and disjointed chats, which are, mercifully, also pretty hilarious. But having an especially low intelligence can have its benefits, as it basically often serves as a shortcut to be able to make things happen. In New Vegas, Arcade Gannon will immediately team up with you out of worry for your own safety if you have intelligence of 3 or lower. In Fallout 1 and 2, many NPCs who can't work out what you're trying to say to them will instead just provide you with useful items. And some quests get even better, with Tor the town simpleton having a surprisingly engaging conversation with you so long as your IQ is low enough. Sometimes being stupid really is the smartest thing you can do. Number 3. Using only your starter Pokemon. Pokemon X and Y. Using only your starter Pokemon has long been a method employed by many players, from dyed-in-the-wool experts looking for a challenge to kids who don't actually realize how to catch other critters and use them well. However, unless you're actively seeking out this method, it's a pretty weird way to play the game. Every single installment of the franchise repeats countlessly about the importance of type matchups, and having a single party member means you can't have the moves that would be effective against every potential enemy. And thus, for those who aren't able to plan Pokemon battles like military operations, taking this route usually means that the game will provide you with a greater challenge. Unless, that is, of course, you're playing Pokemon X or Y. Because not only are these widely considered to be the easiest games in the series, they also seem tailor-made to let you cruise through with just your starter Pokemon. Not only does the game have an easy way to improve EVs, letting you gain more stats when you level up, but it also has an ace up its sleeve, that being the Battle Chateau. Introduced before the second gym, the Chateau provides basically infinite trainers to fight against whose levels adjust based on the levels of your own Pokemon. This means that you can easily grind for levels until the cows come home, ensuring that your solo Poke pet can bulldoze anything that would have potentially proved to be an absolute threat for it. Number 2. Idling. Team Fortress 2. The accidental reward provided by Team Fortress 2's item system managed to create such an unfortunate setup that, for a good while, it presented a real problem for those trying to actually play the game. To make a painfully long story short, the game would randomly give you item rewards when you were in matches. However, this wasn't based on you doing anything in the game, but rather just existing within a specific ongoing match. As such, plenty of players just did absolutely nothing, continuously joining games simply to idle in them while they got items and just went on with the rest of their lives. Not playing but existing existing in games for hours is sheer idiocy at its finest, because after all, this is a game, just play it. And yet, it actually paid off, because some of these items in this game are worth insane amounts of money, and those who were just idling for whole days naturally had a better chance of obtaining these sweet rewards and then selling them off for a profit. Realizing the flaw of this system, Valve removed all items gained through this method and then went on to make sure that you were definitely active and playing in order to get your wonderful hats. But for a time, well, laziness reigned supreme. And number 1, totally ignoring the main quest, Skyrim. Accidentally becoming too powerful to have the final fight be a challenge is a tale old as time. Countless players of Skyrim have only faced Alduin in a noble battle for the world after doing literally everything else they could. When you're the Archmage of Winterhold College, Guildmaster of Thieves, Listener of the Dark Brotherhood, and generally a total badass, the idea of fighting another big scary dragon really just isn't that imposing anymore. While every free roam game is guilty of this, Skyrim takes it that extra step further, as it just gives you loads of major side quests right at the beginning of the game. If you're a natural-born completionist or just have fun exploring these wonderful lands, you can easily rock up to the final fight totally overpowered by complete accident. But this is a mixed blessing and a curse, as you've accidentally made what could be a moderately challenging fight a total cakewalk, ensuring that you end the main questline of the regular game feeling like a stone-cold champion, but also maybe a little bit underwhelmed by Alduin. But hey, he should have been smarter and cut you down in your prime, right? And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 video games that rewarded you for being an idiot. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0. But also, do me a favor and go over to Live and Let's Dice. It's my gaming channel. I'm doing loads of streaming at the moment, and I'm going through a Fallout New Vegas heavily modded run, and it is going to be a blast. But before I go, I just want to say one thing, and that is we detailed today a lot of times about where we switched off our brains to have a good time and got rewarded for it. And you know what? We can actually apply that to our real lives as well, because sometimes throwing a lot of mental energy at a problem can be exhausting and might not even solve it in the best possible way. So take a step back, get a bit of perspective, and just let yourself relax both physically and mentally, because it is so incredibly important that you do this. You might then be able to look at your life with a bit more perspective, be able to see what problems could be addressed in simpler or easier ways, or whether you just need support in getting to that finish line in one piece. So don't beat yourself up so much, because you are an absolute big ledge to me. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.